In the world of marathon running, there's this one magic number, the goal for many pro runners, the record that will be broken one day. It's the sub-2 marathon, 41.195 kilometers in just under 2 hours. Countless scientific predictions were made throughout the years when the big day would come, on which the first human being finishes a marathon below 120 minutes. Little did the scientists know how fundamentally the world of running would be shocked by the beginning of the 2020th decade. This is the full story of the Nike Supershoes.
Nike Alphafly.
The Nike Alphafly Supershoes.
1:59:40, the first man to run a marathon in under 2 hours.
It all likely began in Beaverton, Oregon, the location of the Nike World Headquarters. Back in the days when Nike was a smaller project by Phil Knight, the founder of the sportswear brand, the running shoes he sold were mainly designed and engineered in Japan, with slight touches and improvements by him and his business partner Bill Bowerman. As you would expect from a company worth $164 billion, that changed dramatically. Situated on the company campus are various departments, including the Nike Sports Research Lab, an in-house center dedicated to the secret development of enhanced gear through research and science. In August 2019, Thomas Clark is in a good mood. He knows what's about to happen. Thomas Clark is Nike's president of innovation. He is responsible for new tech being implemented in Nike gear, and right now it's going really well for his department. His scientists, engineers and researchers managed to create a product in the Nike lab which would change running very soon. Nike's high-tech lab has been the origin of hundreds of sports-related patents, including the US patent number 10,856,611, filed on August the 19th. This patent would end up revolutionizing the marathon theme like nothing did before. Its power would first be demonstrated to the public 2 months later in October. In the Ineos 1:59 challenge, Eliud Kipchoge absolutely smashed the marathon world record he set just 1 year prior by a staggering 2 minutes, from 2 hours 1 minute and 39 seconds to 1 hour 59 minutes and 40 seconds, an unofficial world record. A huge success not only for the Kenyan runner but also for a sponsor, Nike, since Kipchoge wore a prototype of the Nike Alphafly, the first shoe using the Supershoe technology of Nike's patent. To this day, scientists couldn't fully figure out what exactly makes the Nike Alphafly so fast, but what most researchers agree on is this. For a shoe to be fast, it needs to return as much energy that is put into it back to the athlete. This can be done in various ways. When it comes to the Nike Alphafly, the research lab came up with a sole containing 2 main components, which work together to maximize this effect. First up, there's the Zoom X foam made out of Pebax. It is an extremely lightweight bouncy foam that snaps back into its original position once the pressure of a stride is released. Many athletes describe it as running on a bouncy cloud-like surface. Against the common misconception, the Zoom X foam actually plays a bigger role of the energy restoration effect than the second component of the sole, which is a carbon plate that flexes upon the foot's contact with the ground, storing energy, and then returns to its original shape when the foot is lifted off the ground again, releasing the energy back to the runner. Nike promises an 85% energy return in their shoes. But is this just an empty marketing claim, or is there actual evidence? Among other criteria, for a statement to be scientifically valid, it must be reproducible. In May 2022, a group of researchers and scientists from Canada, Australia and New Zealand published a study on the metabolic and performance responses wearing Nike Vaporfly 4%. The Vaporfly 4% contain the same tech as the Alphafly, so comparisons can be made. As the name says, they are supposed to make you run faster by 4%. On a 3-kilometer track, 18 male recreational runners were compared running wearing Nikes, Saucony Endorphin Racing flats, and their own shoes, which served as a control shoe for the comparison. They conducted a comprehensive analysis measuring factors such as oxygen consumption, heart rate, lactate levels, and more, to compare the influence of the footwear on performance down to the finest detail. They ended up with a bunch of diagrams which are worth taking a closer look at. This one, for example, shows the oxygen consumption of the runners compared while running at 80% of their VO2 peak wearing the different shoes.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Okay, so let me explain. The y-axis displays the oxygen consumption. It is measured in milliliters per kilogram times minutes. This means the amount of oxygen consumed in milliliters divided by the body weight of the runner times the time which the runner ran the 3 kilometers in. Here's a practical example for this measurement. We assume there's a male recreational runner, let's call him Jimmy, who finished the 3 kilometers in 13 minutes and 30 seconds, so 13.5 minutes. He weighs in at around 80 kilograms. The last number we need is the amount of oxygen he consumes during the whole run. For this example, we use 4000 milliliters as the average oxygen consumption per minute. During a 13.5 minute run, this makes a total of 54,000 milliliters of oxygen. We now do the math, ending up with Jimmy having an oxygen consumption rate of 50 milliliters per kilogram a minute. This would put him right here on this chart. But why would we want to do all this math for an arbitrary number that is hard to even understand? If the researchers simply measured the total amount of oxygen consumed by the runners, it would be challenging to make accurate comparisons. This is because a heavier or slower runner would naturally consume more oxygen, given the greater muscle mass that needs to be powered or the longer duration they spend running on the track. Now let's look at the x-axis. It's split into 3 segments: own, flat, and VP4, which obviously stands for Vaporfly 4%. This just indicates which value was ran with which shoe. Also, below the x-axis, it says 80% of VO2 peak. VO2 peak serves as a key indicator of the body's oxygen utilization during exercise. It represents the maximum amount of oxygen an individual can use during intense or maximal physical activity. If Jimmy exercised at 80% VO2 peak, it means he is working out at 80% of his peak performance as determined by VO2 peak measurement. The last number we find on the x-axis is n equals 13. This means that of the 18 runners the researchers did tests with, they used 13 of them in this diagram. Let's now take a closer look at the data the diagram showcases. The data is displayed in 2 different ways. First up, there are dots connected by lines. These are the individual measurements of each runner. The guy who recorded these dots, for example, had an oxygen consumption of 55.5 in his own shoes, about 54 in the Saucony, and about 50 in Nikes. Even more meaningful than the data of the individual runners are the bars representing the mean value of each shoe. Comparing the Nikes with the control shoe, the researchers found an average decrease in oxygen consumption of 4.4% when running in Nikes instead of their own shoes. The researchers categorized this as significant reduction, which in scientific terms signifies a substantial difference caused by the footwear. This reduced oxygen consumption indicates that running in the Nikes demands less effort for the same outcome. The second diagram, which is noteworthy, is this one. It looks similar to the first one and has the same x-axis. Instead of displaying the oxygen consumption, the diagram shows the energy cost in watt per kilograms. Watt per kilogram is a relatively simple unit, which only requires measuring the total energy the runner spends while running the 3 kilometers divided by the individual's weight. So if it took Jimmy 1440 watts to finish the 3 kilometers, he would have an energy cost of 18 watts per kilogram, which would put him right here on this diagram. Comparing the mean values of each shoe, there's a noticeable decline in the energy cost when running in Nikes. The numbers show a 4.8% energy reduction when using Nikes instead of the control shoe. The energy saved due to the shoe's technology leads to an improved performance of the runner. So the shoe makes you faster. What now? Now the world of running has changed forever. On the 6th of July 2023, a user called The Future Historian posted this diagram in the subreddit r/data-is-beautiful. The diagram shows how male pro runners improved their times over the years. Until 2018, the trend appears relatively consistent, with a gradual year-on-year improvement in speed. However, starting from 2019, there's a significant decline in the average runner's time. This speed boost is directly caused by the Nike Supershoe launch. Nike is currently the world's #1 when it comes to competitive running footwear, since they pioneered the Supershoe market. The men's marathon world record set by Kelvin Kiptum in Chicago 2023 was ran in the latest Alphafly 3. But today they are not the only company selling Supershoe. Adidas, Essex, Saucony, New Balance, Hoka, Puma, Brooks and many others sell shoes with very similar technology to Nike's. In the 2023 Berlin Marathon, Tigist Assefa destroyed the women's world record by over 2 minutes. She wore the Adidas Adios Pro Evo 1, the latest Supershoe by Adidas. So Supershoes are a big thing for the running world. Ever since Kipchoge ran his sub 2 in Vienna, there's one big question. Is this technological form of doping acceptable? This is a moral question we can't give a definite answer to. Our goal is to present sports science in an accessible manner and demonstrate how to engage with scientific data. This video took more time in research and production than expected, and we need your feedback to decide whether it was worth it or not. So feel free to like the video if you found it interesting and comment if you want to critique anything. Also check out the shorts we frequently post for more sports science content. Thanks for watching and stay healthy.